This podcast is part of the Listen Frederick Podcast Network. To learn more, visit listenfrederick.com.
What's up, everybody? It's episode 86 of Beers in the Lot. In this episode, we talked a lot about the Beagle, Terry, and Zegras incident. And then through that, we also talked about the Subban, Wahlstrom, and Hughes incident. And we also hit on ESPN's handling or mishandling of at least one of the Frozen Four games this weekend. So let's go. Let's crack beers.
Aaron, what do you have this week?
This week I've got from Samuel Adams, Cold Snap White Ale. Figure, guess I'm kind of hopeful that this is the last week that we have cold snaps going on. I don't know what the forecast is like, but I'm sick of cold. So get this beer out of the way.
Cold Snap's good on draft.
Hopefully that goes, the actual cold goes with this beer. What you got, John?
So I have from Upland Brewing, Pedal to the Kettle, Tart at Full Speed. It's an ale with hibiscus, strawberry, and rosé. Like Ricky Rosé. Yeah, so it's part of their tart series. So that's kind of my jam right now, style of beer if I'm getting it. Excellent. If it's in fucking date, which it is. So, yeah. Riggs, what are you drinking tonight?
The Truth. From
the
Flying
Truth.
Dog.
Nothing
Can
but
you
the
handle the truth?
Yeah, I had to go with Flying Dog tonight because I didn't really have anything else in the fridge. So, not that it's a bad thing. The Truth is very good, and I'm sure Daniel has another Treehouse variety.
How did you know?
So
how did you know?
So I'll go local, and he can go back to Massachusetts.
Masshole.
So tonight I have a Curiosity 123. It is a experimental double IPA made with fresh hops. Very good as always.
I'm curious. How is it?
Yeah, how's
It's
the
good.
experiment?
It's tasty. Experiment has succeeded.
I'm curious about the curiosity. Come on, John. That was funny.
It's like these schnozberries. It's like schnozberries.
That's such a dad joke. Like, I respect it. Just like shaking my head over here. I'm like, come on, guys. We're better. We're better than that.
We're that.
No, we're
we
not.
are that. 3 out of 4 of us are dads.
Oh yeah. Way to shame me, Aaron. Welcome to 2022. Thanks.
Johnny, did Jay Beagle receive supplementary discipline for his vicious attack on a talented young player in the NHL?
I don't think
Not
he
just
did,
a talented young player, a superstar.
Well,
Trevor Zegras, a superstar.
Yeah. I mean, all right, look.
well, all right. So So I have and we can all break it down differently. So Zegras gets cross-checked by or no. Yeah, Riggs, break down the play because I'm thinking of more of the Jay Beagle thing. What started this whole malarkey?
The Ducks have a lot of talented young players. Superstars, if you will.
In some eyes,
Some
yeah,
will.
sure.
Some will.
Yeah, some eyes.
Right. And Trevor Zegras at speed did a Michigan goal, and
It was super sick.
Around
awesome.
around Milano.
Around
too.
Sonny Milano. Right. Sonny Milano was posted up on the far side at the time, and Zegras came around the net, picked
Milano
it
was
up
like
Michigan style, and swung it around Milano and into
and
the net.
post.
It was sick.
It was
I have
so
another
good.
thought about Milano, but continue. we could touch on that later.
Well, I know what you're going to say about him, and I might agree with it.
Yeah.
So you know, they're good young players and
sexy too.
Right.
They play a good upbeat tempo of hockey.
And Jay Beagle, you have to understand where he's coming from. I actually have a signed Jay Beagle picture to
Jay
my
Beagle's
left.
your dog.
To my left, Jay Beagle's my dog from when he was with Hershey, coming up in the Capitals organization.
The 80s is where he came from, by the way.
And so, and this is where I'm going. This is exactly where I'm going. Is the way that he came up is he always had to work, right? He played at Alaska, and that people that go play there, it's hard. It's hard to get noticed, and you really have to do some things that maybe you wouldn't normally do. Hint, hint. So, coming up, he had to really work hard to get to the NHL, right? And do some things like being physical and being the defensive zone face-off guy and getting into fights and getting knocked out and all this kind of stuff, right? And so it's a very old school mentality, I think. It's old school NHL. To Aaron's point, this is very much 70s, 80s, early 90s. but this is where that culture comes from, right? And so there's the showboating word is thrown around. I tend to believe that it's skill. It's just where the skill level is of the young players coming in now. But the players that are still in that old school culture and mindset say, oh, these guys are just showboat. These young players, they haven't paid their dues. They're just showboating and they're trying to show us up by doing the Michigan goal. And Troy Terry's flying around. He's been flying around the last 2 seasons. Highly talented, again, young players. So Beagle goes after Troy Terry, and
there was a cross check in front of the net, though.
So yeah,
I think that Beagle cross-checked Zegras, and then Terry came in. And then
Terry comes over, right? Okay. So
it was a pretty blatant cross-check, too. Like, Zegras had his back to him. And,
So Beagle goes after Zegras. Troy Terry stands up for his buddy, right? Rightly so. Which is, some would say that's an old school thing, but hockey's still going to be hockey. What I was talking about with you guys earlier or I guess this is early week because it's Monday, but anyway, when it all happened was like they took away the pure enforcer and defender of the talented player, right? Mm-hmm. So they took away the Proberts and the Domies and
Barnaby and
these Barnaby was just
he was a pest, but he answered the bell when he needed to.
Yeah, but he wasn't making space for players.
No.
Players.
No.
So those guys are gone, right? And in a somewhat ironic metaphor, like whatever word you want to use for it, the Ducks had sent Nick Delorier's away, and he's kind of like that player, but not, because the rules don't allow him to be. So,
well, and he plays third, fourth line. So like I would say in today's game, we could use enforcer in air quotes,
right?
Like that's the closest type of dude.
So you could say that like the Ducks don't really have that person anymore, like at all. And so when that happens, and then Troy Terry has to come in and Jay Beagle beats the bag out of him, that's the way that was going to go. For me right now, the way I look at it is the league has to decide that if you don't want the players to police themselves, then you have to police the players. So if Beagle goes after Zegras, Troy Terry tries to step in, and then Beagle goes after him, and I think the whatever the aggressor rule or whatever it is comes into play here, where Terry wasn't coming in to fight.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't coming in to fight. Jay Beagle dropped his gloves and jumped him. So, and then, and now he's throwing the first punches, and Troy Terry is not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal.
So his face is mangled afterwards. I mean, the pictures are all over social media. But, the league's got to step in and say, we're not going to allow this, especially since they're not allowing the players to take care of it. They're not, they have, and rightly so. Like, we shouldn't have these guys that just take up roster spots to get a minute or less of ice to go and throw fists. Like, that is not a thing. If you want to go watch that, UFC's on every Saturday night. Boxing is on every Friday and Saturday night. I know because I watch it. There's a place for that. It's not the NHL in this era. The players that should be in the league are the Troy Terrys, are the Trevor Zegrases. The players that should not be in the league are Jay Beagle going after people like that.
All right. Now I'm going to chime in for the Jay Beagle slander, because I have a different take on it, believe it or not, because I like the sexy style hockey. Like, I have nothing wrong with the Michigan, nothing like that. So Jay Beagle, let's dig a little deeper into his background. I believe he's part of the Triple Championship Club, ECHL, AHL, and NHL, correct?
Yes.
I'm almost 100%.
Golden horseshoe up his ass. Yep. Yes.
Yeah. He's a man. He wins faceoffs, okay?
Wait. That was a different
guy.
Yeah.
Different guy, but we could still apply that saying to him. All right. So, and you got to think, because he won his ACHL when he came out of Alaska. So this guy had to work, similar to what he said. He worked. So anytime, like, if you think in front of the net, he cross-checked somebody because he either didn't like it, they said something, whatever. We don't know. I don't care. The next guy that jumps in, like, kind of hockey code to some extent. And I know, air quotes again, the code, like, everybody gets all butthurt about that because they're like, well, there's a way to do it. All right, I get it. But it changes with generations. And also, too, like, in certain settings of the game, like, it's a loose code.
I liked what Riggs said and how he got jumped, because that's exactly what happened.
So here's actually where, like, I'm going to keep going on Beagle's side up into a point. So Beagle drops his gloves. Terry still has them on. He fed him 1, 2, 3. And then at 3, I'm kind of like, all right, now it's a problem. Let's say he just one punched him and not even like a knockout, any of that stuff. Let's just say he dropped his gloves, tangled him, hit him once. At some point, I'm shocked he either wasn't, well, two things. Either he wasn't cognizant of the fact he had his gloves on still, or two, which I kind of think maybe the latter, he didn't care at that point. He's like, you're going to come at me. I don't care who the hell you are.
So this is exactly where the aggressor rule comes in.
Exactly. And that,
because
and
it's
like
all
I said,
about, it's all about the player who has clearly gotten an advantage. It is engaging an unwilling person or someone that cannot defend themselves anymore, and you are still trying to punch at them or otherwise hurt them. That is exactly where it comes into play. Now, I don't know, there is a supplemental discipline process for that. I don't know all the ins and outs, but the aggressor penalty clearly says that suspensions can follow from it.
Oh, absolutely. Because what is it, a major, like a 10?
It's supposed to be 5 and 10.
5 and 10. Okay.
So I'm not sure if you guys have seen it or not, but there was another incident that basically is exactly the situation that happened. I believe it was last night, Sunday night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Oliver Wahlstrom of the Islanders led with the knee on a hit on Jack Hughes again on the
scumbag
on Jersey. Islanders in Jersey playing. Wahlstrom leads with the knee and injures Jack Hughes. Plays going back up the ice the other way. PK Subban skates across the ice.
Yes.
Subban is a right D and Wahlstrom is a right winger, so he has to go across the ice to get him on the play coming up. Subban drops his gloves and starts just wailing on Wahlstrom as he's just trying to stay with the play. I mean, clearly it was a bad hit by Wahlstrom. Shouldn't have happened. Should be a penalty. But Subban comes across the ice and just starts fighting him. And Wahlstrom still had his gloves on. He was turtling. Like,
well, and that was,
did he deserve to get punched? Yeah, you can't knee a guy like that. But at the same time, he wasn't trying to fight.
Well, if you remember last week, and I don't remember the play, Taylor Hall got fined because he hit somebody from behind.
I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop this right now. Who cares about that? What did Subban get in the game?
I'm looking at that right now. I believe he got thrown out. I believe he got 5 for fighting.
He got the 5 and the 10, right?
And I'm pretty sure he got 10 as well. I'm looking to make sure.
So it was called correctly on the ice, and then it will be reviewed by the league.
Correct.
For supplementary discipline. Right?
Which will probably get nothing because he got kicked out.
Right.
Strong chance.
Right.
Even though PK Subban slewfoots people all the time, and maybe they should make an example of him.
So in that case,
doesn't actually say.
It was probably more clear what was happening. So it was easier to make the call, I would say. And that's benefit of the doubt to the on-ice officials. But I feel like that's the same situation.
Yes, I think it is the same situation.
So what was the call in this game?
The Anaheim Phoenix game? I think it was just fighting. I think. Right?
It was fighting both ways, right?
Fighting both ways, yeah.
Which is a joke.
So the other thing I have where we're talking about like guys need to police themselves, I'm fine either way, like in terms of policing. But I also kind of look at like a dude like, let's just throw Mac in there because it's easy. He needs no help in terms of anyone trying to protect him. Landeskog, no.
He should not. Ruffians. He shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to deal with.
He shouldn't have to, and I fully understand that. Like, yeah, he should have somebody on the ice if some jagoff is going after him.
No,
like he shouldn't have to fight him.
No. That is exactly not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you took that out, which was the right thing to do because it allowed more talented players to come into the league. It improved the product on the ice by taking those type of players out. But at the same time, you left a vacuum. You said, players, you can't police each other anymore. You can't control this on your own anymore. But then you never put the pedal down on, okay, now we're going to come in and really try and control this and really enforce some of this supplementary discipline on guys that are taking advantage of players. Like that, this is what's happening. Subban goes after Wahlstrom. Wahlstrom probably didn't, like, chances are Wahlstrom made that play and didn't even know that Jack Hughes was hurt.
He kind of knew, but at least from the video, it looked like he looked down and was like, oh, man. But at the same time, he kept playing like he did not. He kept playing like there was no penalty on the play.
Did the whistle blow?
No,
right.
There was no reason to stop playing, so he continued playing.
Right.
So
Subban attacks him in retaliation, right?
Right.
Goes after him and gets the call that he's supposed to get. Like this is what's supposed to happen.
Riggs.
But in the Beagle Terry situation, they're going to say 5 and 5, even though it's the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a question because I'm like, I get kind of both sides of the argument. And unfortunately, like this is just one where I'm in the middle on it because like, I do like fighting, but I understand it as a place and a certain point in the game. And I'm not saying like Jay Beagle is right. I think it sucks, especially with Troy Terry, because like he's a great player, American hockey player as well. I don't want to see that shit. But do you think, so I guess my question is, where do you think more of the onus is on? Is it on the officials to kind of not necessarily ticky-tack shit, but is it more the when you see stuff starting to get to a boiling point or so-and-so player, you need to stomp it out? Because I think in the Leafs game this weekend, with like a minute or like 30 seconds left in the period, or even the game, I think it was, Wayne Simmons and somebody else, they just booted him. The game, like a 2-minute penalty.
Yeah. Future.
I was watching.
I forget. I think it was Kopp. I think it was Kopp and Simmons. They were John, and they just gave him a 2-minute penalty just to get it out. Because the game was already over. It had no bearing on the consequence. So it was either on the officials or does there need to be something in terms of, and I understand like it's tough for players because players, unfortunately, versus refs play with emotion. So there's different, emotions boil over. You think so-and-so wronged me here or caught me with a stick here or, said something about my mom here, however, game is on the line, blah, blah, blah.
I think
it's like, where's the onus more? Where do you think?
The problem is the league never fully transitioned to we're controlling the play now. The players are not controlling play. So it used to be that you would have the one or two guys on your roster that would control all this and discipline this. But they decided that that wasn't appropriate, and they were right because it was dragging down the talent and skill level of the league, and it was dragging down the product, and it was dragging down the ability to market the product to a larger audience. This is what happened. And so they decided that we're going to change and adjust things in a way that it's no longer palatable to keep those type of players on a roster. So those players are gone. There's a few still around, Reeves, these types. But even they're getting some meaningful minutes in some situations.
And they can skate and add benefit to the team.
So then, so you do that, right? However, there has not been enough done in the supplementary discipline side of things and Department of Player Safety, which is a joke of a name, considering what's going on, considering what happened to Troy Terry or what happened to Jack Hughes. There's no
Neon knees worse in my mind.
There's no emphasis on player safety. None. It's only after the fact discipline. And so if you're not going to enforce the after the fact discipline, what are you doing? You're not doing anything. You've basically told the players it's, everybody for themselves. It's stupid. This is dumb. You take away the ability for the players to take care of this on the ice, but you haven't filled that in with any other kind of control or discipline.
And I think part of the problem there is that the league and the fans want to see the higher skill. They don't want to see enforcers, guys that can barely skate and just throw punches. They don't want to see that. Nobody wants that anymore. But the problem is that go, John, go.
Time it really quick. Skill, yes. Every hockey fan still wants to see a fight.
Sure, but
when you're when you're looking at the schedule and you're like, oh, I want to watch this game. Are you doing it because you know that these players are going to fight, or are you doing it because McKinnon's going to be on the ice, Matthews going to be on the ice, McDavid's going to be on the ice, Crosby's going to be on the ice, Ovechkin's going to be on the ice?
That's how
are you doing it based on that? Exactly.
Used to be that you did it the way you were talking about. If it used to be, it was like, oh yeah, I want to see Boston and New York play because they're going to kill each other.
Yeah, it's going to be a bloodbath. Exactly.
That's how
I don't
it
need
used
to see that
be,
anymore.
But it's not that way anymore. So that's what I'm getting at, is that we don't have those players that are just fighters, that all they do is go out and fight people and cause hurt to the other team. We don't really have that anymore. But we don't not have that as well, because we do have players that are exceptionally skilled at the game and are big scorers who also are big body checking, like hard hitters that will fight and will make you pay. I think about Tom Wilson. He's a great example. He's a huge impact on the scoreboard for the Capitals, and nobody wants to be on the ice with him because they know that he's going to hurt them. And so Tom Wilson is, maybe he's not a good example because of a stigma that, 2 minutes for controversial. but there are players like
trigger warning.
There are some big body players that, they're good at the game. They're going to get second, third line minutes, but they're also going to be the guys that will fight. And those are the ones that will end up making fights. So we sort of still have it, but at the same time, like you said, we're transitioning away from it. So I think that's part of the problem.
Here's the thing though, Wilson's a great example because there is some controversy around him over the years, right?
Sure. Yeah.
The league may or may not have handled some of the things that he did the right way or the wrong way. And it's because of the way things are structured. You know, the CBA kind of lays down the ground rules for how discipline's going to be handled. And so at some point, I think, and I think I wrote this when we were chatting on Discord, at some point, the players are going to have to say, you know what? When we get out of line, there needs to be more severe punishment. And that needs to be a deterrent to some of the things that are going on.
Right.
So as much as it is like the league stepping in, also maybe the players need to, through that process, decide collectively that this is about our safety and this is about our ability to play the game and do our jobs, because it is their job. They're
Right.
professionals. And that's going to be a big change.
Yeah.
Because it literally takes playing time and money away from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're going to have to agree to that, right?
And right. And part of it too, I hate to blame officials, but you got to make a call that's going to stop the other events from happening. And you can't foresee that. Like, you couldn't have foreseen that. I mean, you might have been able to foresee in the Isles and Devils game that, hey, we did make a call on Jack Hughes getting knee on knee. Maybe there's going to be some retribution for that. You gotta get the easy ones. Like, that's an easy call to make, if you ask me.
But you also got to remember, one was during play, one was after a whistle.
So yes, the one with Troy Terry and Zegras after the cross check that Beagle made though was pretty egregious. I mean, it happened fast enough that you can't stop play and make the call that will stop any of those events from happening. And the Subban one, I think, could have been avoided if the call had been made. But yeah, in the Zegras Terry Beagle, no, you're right. Yeah, you can't do that. At least in some cases, I think the onus is on the refs to make the call that will stop the future, because there's going to be a reaction. I mean, if a star player gets knee on knee and there's no call, then somebody's going to do something. Well, especially if you got certain guys on the ice.
Even if PK doesn't go after Wahlstrom,
it'll happen later or something.
Later on, somebody's going to challenge Wahlstrom. It's going to it's going to happen.
Right.
Because the refs know the game. They know how these players operate too. I mean, the code or whatever still kind of exists. Yeah.
Exactly. In that situation, then it's going to be, air quotes, the code that comes into play where, somebody's going to line up against Wahlstrom and they're going to have a chat. And it's basically like, hey, man, you got to answer for that.
Right.
And Wahlstrom's either going to accept it or not, and it'll go from there. But yeah,
what else do we want to hit?
Can we talk about ESPN moving the Minnesota State University
to fuck over people who actually wanted to watch it?
Mankato, the Mavericks, Bright's squad, horns up. Let's go Mavs. Moving their game from ESPN2 to ESPNU. Their Frozen 4 game, by the way. Nationally ranked number 1 team gets moved to ESPNU, effectively cutting out millions of customers in the Midwest. Minnesota's in the Midwest, by the way.
It is?
For all you big geography people out there.
We're a big geography podcast, Jeff.
Yeah.
So not me, because I'll be watching.
We live on Earth.
We said we said a lot of nice things about ESPN last week because we were watching Isabel Cup final and we had been watching the NCAA tournament and it was great and all this stuff, and then this happened. So I wanted to balance it out. And also, John, before we went on the air, so to speak, we're not on the air, but whatever, it's a podcast.
Before Aaron typed in the command to start recording.
Yes. Johnny was going on a tirade about ESPN.
Yeah.
He always goes on a tirade.
Johnny and tirades. Name a more iconic duo.
Yeah. I'll wait.
I'm trying to spark that back up. But anyway, I'm a little upset that this happened with the Mavs because,
It's bullshit.
Mark Breiter, who is the equipment dude for the women's side at Mankato, is helping out with the men's team on their trip to Boston this week for the Frozen Four. I think they leave. Today's Monday. I think they leave tomorrow. He's been posting stuff on his Twitter, I know of like getting all the patches and the decals on the helmets and all that cool stuff that goes along with going to a championship level event. And I think it sucks that they got flexed by ESPN. But Jonny was upset with ESPN because apparently he can't watch old ass hockey games on there.
Yeah, well, all right. So let's touch on the college hockey.
Super important to 25% of hockey players who have a Beers in the Lot podcast.
Yeah. So even hold on. Hey.
I just want to get him spun up. Let's go.
Easy.
Let's go.
Shut the hell up and let me speak. But so ESPN, even though they haven't had NHL hockey for the last 8 years, they've had the sole distribution rights of the Frozen Four. So they always have the 2 semis and the final every freaking year.
Yep.
And now that they have this big platform with ESPN where it has, NCAA, NHL, PHF, they had the KHL before they had to be removed. They do the PGA Tour, they do MLB, they do various levels of soccer and blah, 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 and bowling, blah, blah, blah. All that shit.
They have pickleball. They have pickleball too. There was a Austin something or other pickleball open was on.
I saw that obscure Sports Quarterly the other day.
The Ocho.
The Ocho.
ESPN 8 the Ocho.
Someone was mentioning it last night. He was like, "I was watching grown men play tag."
That is so fun to watch, though. Honestly,
wasn't Spike Ball on at B-Dubs at one time?
Yes.
We were in there. Yeah.
Oh
my god! It's like, isn't there anything else on?
You were in B-Dubs for 4 hours. Got one beer.
You got you got one beer and a basket of fries.
Yeah, you didn't even order the basket of fries. It just showed up randomly.
Try to make you forget about your beer.
So ESPN, I don't understand how they're flexing this game. And like Greg said, there's a ton of Midwest hockey fans and just college hockey fanatics that are this is their NCAA basketball tournament. This is their NCAA bowl selection games, all that nonsense. This is important. And especially for a school like Mankato, this is a big deal for them. So the fact that they flexed it is that's total garbage.
They're number
it's
one.
Garbage.
They're number one in the country.
Yeah,
exactly.
They have genius head coach Mike Hastings.
Yep.
Genius.
Great equipment staff on both levels of the men's and women's team.
The best equipment staff.
Yeah, exactly. Stellar equipment staff.
And then some pretty good players.
Yeah.
Pretty good goalie too.
Very good goalie. Very good goalie.
I've heard.
but I was the one thing that kind of set me off in the initial tirade was it's Masters week. And I was like, wow, you can watch. So the Masters for the last couple of years, same with the British Open, they put out, a yearly kind of video of who won, recaps, essentially the big important rounds, big important shots, how moving day and all that stuff go, who got cut, blah, 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 and the champion, yada, yada. And they have it I was watching 81 to 91 for the Masters just because I dig that shit. I like history and all that. And I was in the middle of watching, I'm like, why the fuck don't they have anything for the Stanley Cup for these years? This is bullshit. And the worst thing is the Masters was using ESPN Classic footage. And I'm like, ESPN Classic definitely showed classic NHL games. This is nonsense. And then Eric was like, well, the NHL has it. I'm like, well, release it. Put it into the atmosphere. People will consume it. Me, but others, I'm sure there has to be somebody else that will watch it. Right?
I'm not watching it.
All right, get the hell out of here then. I don't care.
Well, that's it for episode 86. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Be sure to check out beersandalot.com for more information about anything you can think of to ask us, or come ask us in person in Discord. beersandalot.com/Discord for the invite link. Be sure to listen to next week's episode. At the time of this recording, we are still planning to have a repeat guest, a very timely guest, so be sure to listen next week. But again, thank you for listening this week. We'll catch you next Wednesday. See you.